We're live. All right, here we go. Pull up the notes here. All right, go 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Today, Sean, we've got really interesting guests joining us here shortly.
Yeah.
In about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to be talking about brainwashing. Been talking a little bit about that lately, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Brainwashing people.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit different angle. People listening to this podcast and you and I, like, we really love just the idea of persuasion and the principles, and regardless of which side it's on. Like, I think our listeners, and I know we are, interested in just kind of how this stuff works and how it's used, both for good and not so good. So I think we're going to be drifting a little bit to the more evil side, right? To the more dark side of persuasion and brainwashing and all that kind of stuff. And we've got an expert coming on that's going to kind of lead us through what I think everybody will be familiar with what this guy is going to be talking about. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. While we talk about beer,
we might get our names on a hit list, Sean. You think
we might? We could. It could be very. We'll see. If we're not here next week, you'll know why.
That's a good tease right there.
Yeah,
we might be on a hit list after this episode. So,
and no, it's not the Clintons. No, we're not.
But before we get into that,
yes,
before we meet our demise, if that be the case, we've got some beers.
Absolutely, yeah, we've got some beverages to talk about to
absolutely
lubricate the brain a little bit. All right, so yeah, I've got one from the original Craft Beer Club. This is this month's selection. So I'll let you tell our listeners about the original Craft Beer Club while I get ready.
All right. So this part of our episode is brought to you by the original Craft Beer Club, outstanding craft beers from the finest independent breweries in America. One of the best ways you can sample their beers is by letting the original Craft Beer Club do all the legwork and bring you the best beer discoveries in the country. So you can find out more by visiting them over at persuasionbythepint.com/craft beer. And I'm going to tell you, man, this a service like this, and Sean, when you got beer showing up right at your door every month.
Yep.
Got a nice little selection that you can, assorted selection you can pick from. You don't have to go out. As we all know, we're about to go, it seems like the way the news is hitting us, bombarding us with with depressing event after event about COVID. We're all going back into lockdown again. So
it does appear that way. Yeah, it does appear that way. So yeah, I mean, the original Craft Beer Club was ahead of the pandemic curve. They were ahead of the curve when it comes to flattening the curve.
That's right.
Right. So they've been shipping this stuff. So yeah, each month you get 4 different beers, 3 of each. So you get 12 beers, which depending on how bad things get, that may not be enough. You may need to double up on your subscription. But yeah, it's a good selection. And like this month's beer comes from the great state of Washington, which is, as we're recording this, already in lockdown.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, this brewer is Dick's Brewing Company. And they are in Chehalis, Washington. I'm not sure where exactly that is, but he started home brewing in 1984. And in 1994 launched Dick's Brewing Company. And now they have over 20 different styles of beer. So if you're ever up in Chehalis, Washington, and things are open, then you can go to the tasting room and taste some of the beers. But I'm going to taste one of them right here today, live. Right. So I've got an Irish style red ale. It is a 5. Yeah, so it's a 5.2% ABV, 18 IBUs. And the little spiel on it is, what allows this red ale to be so approachable is the melanoidin malt. I mean, everybody knows about melanoidin malt, right?
Melanoidin.
Yeah, melanoidin, like avoid the noid. Whew. Man, I poured that way too fast.
Man, that is super huge.
Wow. So let's see. Helps create the unique toasty flavor. Dick's use of specialty grains make this beer unique, and the complexity of the roasted Munich malt and rich caramel malt give this beer its depth and richness of flavor. The intricate culmination of malt provides plenty of body and mouthfeel to this gorgeous Irish style ale. So I poured the first bit a little too fast there.
That's right. I can't see much of the red there. It's all white.
Yeah. So I have to figure out how to pour through it. So I'll let you go ahead while I let this settle. And tell us what you got going on there.
All right. So I'm got, by the way, I don't want to mention on the original Craft Beer Club, we're coming up on the holidays, with the Christmas right around the corner. These are always great gifts that
keeps on giving.
Yeah. You can give out one of in the past, I get some of these gift cards from them to give out. They're like digital gift cards though. So you just basically print them out and I'll just send them to or email them to clients or something like that. And,
that's the crap. I forgot to send something card.
That's right. Exactly. It's perfect.
Digital.
Which works again during COVID. You don't send anything. So it's just everything's digital. So but yeah, great gifts to give out. And like you said, a gift that keeps on giving. All right. So I have a strong man.
Nice.
Coffee milk stout.
Oh, sounds good.
Highwire Brewing Company. Roasted. Let's see. This is as roasted coffee, inspired by our head brewer's cafe fueled travels in the East and the Key West. Local coffee from Dynamite Roasting Company. So that's where the coffee's from. Dynamite Roasting Company, and is cold extracted and added post fermentation to the sweet creamy beer.
So real coffee in it.
Real coffee.
Real cold brew coffee, it sounds like. That's awesome.
5.3% ABV, 28 IBUs, and 38 SRMs. What's an SRM?
I have no idea. That's a new one.
I'll have to Google that one.
Man, we're going to have to get us a glossary so we can be like all professional, know these things before they pop up.
All right, here we go. Look at this. All right.
Ooh, yeah. It's another dark one.
Yeah. So I've been hitting the dark ones lately.
Now the red's showing.
Looks good. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the red is showing up.
All right. So let's get our bottle.
Wow, drank that one too fast, did you?
Man, that had hit me way too fast. So
that's all right.
But it's good. I think that coffee's strong, man.
Mine's good. Just a good ale. Like, I wouldn't say there's anything special about it, but there's nothing wrong with it either. It's like that perfect combination of like, it's just a good drinking beer. Like that's what I would say about this. So I'm going to give this like a 3.8 on our 5-pint scale.
3.8. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Man, I like this one. The coffee's pretty strong though. So, I'm going to go, like 3.6.
Right.
It's got a good flavor, but it's,
a little too much coffee, maybe.
Sometimes you can get too much coffee in there, which makes it gives it a little bitter. There's a little bitterness on the backside.
Yeah.
If it had a little more sweetness to balance that out, it would be better. But
yeah. I mean, sometimes when you're drinking beer, you want beer, not coffee, right? If you wanted coffee, you'd get coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly. It's tough to find the balance in those coffee stouts. Like I love them. I think those are really good at like late brunch, lunch. I like a good coffee stout because you can kind of convince yourself if you're not drinking early, you're just drinking coffee late.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Especially when you got one that's, 4 or 5 ABVs. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Not too bad.
That coffee helps to offset the alcohol content a little, so you're good to go.
Yeah. By the way, I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you.
The 1776 themed for our guest today.
That's right. Another grunt style.
Yeah. There you go. So is our guest here with us yet?
Yeah, he is in the green room. So we have. Let me pull him up here.
I don't have the extra green room view, so I can't see. So,
do you not hear the beep?
Nope, I don't hear it on my end.
Oh, you don't hear it. Okay, so it's
I'm just a guest. You're the host, I guess. So,
all right, let's bring Chris up. Chris, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Man, look at your studio. I love it.
I know. Usually when I'm live on my show, I've got the camera zoomed in a little tighter, so you can't see that messy bit of basement over there. It's just the nice backdrop with the.
That is great.
As you can see, we've been doing a lot of politics lately.
Oh yeah. I see I can see your Trump flag right there. I see Trump with a M60. So that's awesome.
That's a good eye. You can tell that's an M60 and not a. Well, it's kind of a fantasy version of an M60 that has some kind of a weird rocket nozzle on the end of it. But
it almost looks like Trump's head has been imposed over Rocky or Rambo's body.
Exactly. But the gun looks like some kind of a mashup between an M60 and it almost looks like a belt-fed flamethrower. And I imagine that both of you understand how little sense that makes, but it makes for a fantastic poster.
That's incredible.
Oh, and SRM, by the way, is standard reference method describing the color of your beer.
Look at that.
There you go. Well, I know we've got a beer connoisseur on right now, so.
No, I have a Google. I'm drinking Scotch.
Oh. See, you're afforded that you can, while you're in the green room, you can be looking that up, and that's good to know, though. Yeah, you don't see that very often on beer.
Yeah. No, you don't. You really only see it on the craft beers. And guys, I apologize. Let me tell you a little story.
Okay.
I am somewhat less prepared to do a show like this than I had intended to be. You see, after I got your email this morning, my plan was, okay, I'm going to watch a few episodes of these guys' podcasts, kind of get a feel for it. I did get to watch a little bit of the podcast, watch a little bit of what you got on YouTube, and got a feel for the beer review. I ain't gonna lie, it wouldn't break my heart to pour a cup of that pork bone broth and just put it in the microwave for 30 seconds to see how it do.
Yes, the pork bone broth brew.
The old dog brew, yes.
But, it's funny. I had this whole plan. I was going to load up a bunch of cardboard that we've got in the garage and take it to the dump and then go to BJ's and get some groceries. And then, and then all this and this. And right after I checked your email, and then my dad sends me a text message. Hey, boy, you busy? And Dad did 36 years. He's an old sergeant major. And
okay.
What you need, old man? I expected. I need you to come over here and help me put this lighter back up on the rack, something like that. It's like, what you need, old man? I'm going shooting. You to come? I'm like, I'll get my M4. I'll be right there. So awesome. We went down to the lake and shot rifles all day.
Hey, fantastic. That sounds like a good day.
So we got to, before you introduce, because I want you to tell us what you're drinking again. I got to give our audience some background because they'll be like, well, okay, who is this? What are we talking about? So we've got Christopher. Do you go by Chris or Christopher?
I'm still not used to having a first name, guys. So
Chris Lowry.
Lowry.
So Christopher Lowry, we've got him joining us. We're pleased to have him. He's a combat veteran with the U.S. Army Special Intelligence and Clandestine Operations. His experience is in topics related to brainwashing of youth and religion related to, I guess, ISIS over there. So you got some experience. We're going to be talking your experience with ISIS.
Well, most of my experience was with the Taliban and Al Qaeda.
Okay.
I got out a little before ISIS was really a big ticket item.
Okay. All right. But you saw a lot about that, and you're going to, from your experience, you were able to see, how they go about, how they've been so successful indoctrinating so many of their youth, their young people, brainwashing. This relates exactly to what we talk about on a regular basis. We've had some recent episodes on, cults and how so many cult followings and groups like that use persuasion and hypnosis and all sorts of influence, hypnotism, whatever you want to call it, to get people to join, to follow them. And so this kind of follows along with what we've talked about recently, and be kind of an interesting, just an interesting, a little bit different perspective from where you're coming from with your background in the military. So this should be really interesting to hear about.
Yeah. Before we jump in though, Lowry, let's talk about what you're drinking. We got to know what kind of scotch you drink.
This came from a little package that my baby brother got me, who's active duty currently. So he's stationed up at Drum, but he brought me this 12 drams of Christmas. A dram, of course, is
nice.
a glass of
Nice.
scotch. So what I'm drinking right now is a Sprayburn. It's a 10-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. It's I drink a lot of Lefroy. This has a similar texture to the Lefroy, but it's not as campfirey. The Lefroy is very, very peat moss heavy, and it's like a cold glass of campfire. I'm back to the bottom of that though, so I'll be switching to. Let's see. I've got a Woodford Reserve on the desk, and I'll do this. I've got a Clontarf 1014 classic blend Irish whiskey.
Oh, nice.
I'm out of single malt, unfortunately.
That'll go with my Irish red ale. So
I'll switch to the poly malt.
There you go. There you go.
And if all else fails, I got an oil can on the desk.
There you go.
Oh, Foster's. All right, man. You are quite prepared for this episode for sure.
Yeah.
You said you had a little Woodford Reserve. I'd had a little bit of that this past week. So
that's I've got the double oak.
Oh yeah. Very nice.
So,
very smooth.
It's just about. I got maybe a swallow left in it.
Yeah.
Well, we love a guest that has at least 3 different types of drinks within arm's reach on the show. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've actually got myself a little display over here. The
Nice.
Foster's is not usually here, but there's almost always a couple of bottles of scotch over there. I don't drink much or often, but when I do, I'm very particular about it. And because you guys, persuasion by the pint. My plan, if I hadn't ended up going entirely the other direction to go out to the range all day, there's a growler bar not too far up the street from me. I was going to go and hopefully get my hands on some, not Dragon's Milk. The Left Hand Brewing Company makes a milk stout that's just out of this world.
Yeah, I recognize that name. We have them on from time to time. So yeah,
Dragon's Milk's good too. Yeah, that's a solid
Dragon's
one.
Milk is solid, but when I can get that Left Hand Milk stout, it's got a smoothness to it that's I haven't had anywhere else.
For sure. So where are you coming into us? What basement? Where's your basement located if it's not a secret?
Well, I'm just off the golf course out here in East Metro Atlanta, a little town called Conyers, Georgia.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
My man, I grew up in Athens. Jonathan's
I'm familiar with Athens.
Yeah, Jonathan's also, but my uncle lived in Conyers for 30 years when I was growing up. So I'm very familiar with good old Conyers.
I spent a lot of time partying in Athens when I was college age.
Haven't we all?
Oh yeah. That's a beautiful place to go when you're young.
Yeah.
And you're single.
Yes, it is.
So we have something all in common. We're all military vets. Sean and I were in the Army as well, and then now we're all from Georgia too. So there's some commonality right there.
Yeah, that's a pleasant little surprise. So if I might ask, what were your MOSs?
Sean?
Yeah, I was 11 Bravo, or technically, I guess at that time 11 X-ray, but I was in the old guard. So
okay, cool.
I went down to, I was only in for 3 years, went through the old guard and did all that stuff up in DC. So I was in from 92 to 95 was my time.
And I was 19 Delta. So I was an old Cav Scout recon. Cool.
Roger that. I was a 98 Gulf when I went in, but while I was in, they switched all the designations around, and I came out a 35 pop-up, but that's cryptolinguistics.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, they sent me to school for 3 years to learn Korean.
Wow. And then stuck you in the Middle East?
Never been to Korea. That's right.
Sounds about right.
Yep. Came out of the language school and went a whole different direction immediately.
Wow.
So before we get into the topic, give us a short background of yourself in the military. What kind of got you into intelligence and kind of directed you to what our topic is today?
Well, believe it or not, before I joined the Army as an old private. I was 25 years old when I went to basic training. Before that, I had spent about 6 years working I was an industrial electrician.
Mm-hmm.
My dad went to DLI and went the whole linguist spook route, and did all that fun stuff. And then he was a recruiter for a long time, but he told me stories about the language college growing up and some of the kind of missions that put you into. And when I was about 25, I just started getting bored with building paper mills and oil refineries, and said, you know what? I think it's time to go do something interesting. Mm-hmm. So I enlisted. I went to DLI. I was trying to go for Russian, but Dad was already a sergeant major, and he thought it would be funny as hell if we both spoke Korean. So I got rerouted, which works out because that's where I met my wife.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm 6.5 feet tall, and I could still manage to run a 15-minute 2 mile with a full combat load on. So that's a rare creature at the language college that gets through all the IQ tests and is like that. So one day, some guy in a black suit came and tapped on my shoulder and said, "Hey, you want to do something really cool?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, like what?" No. You say yes, or we're done here. Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you. First, we got to get the commitment.
And I got to go do some amazing things. I've got my secret squirrel hat out of it. So from DLI, I spent a year at Goodfellow Air Force Base in Texas, and then my permanent duty station for the rest of my career, I did 7 years total. My permanent duty station for the rest of my career was in Hawaii. And then I deployed to Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And I deployed to Afghanistan, which means Kuwait, Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
A little bit of traveling in there, but I had a ball. I was the leader on a 2-man team. Mm-hmm. I had the best private I could have hoped for, and when we got back, he was just about ready to be the best sergeant I could have hoped him to have become. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was a PFC when we got on the bird. I got to pin his sham shield on him.
Yeah.
About a month into the deployment, and then as we were coming back from that deployment, I was getting ready for the board.
Oh wow.
Getting them in below zone. And I mean, we're talking about this kid broke 3 elliptical machines in Afghanistan.
Wow.
He'd just get on it.
Sounds like we should hook him up, Jonathan, with Rich Sheffrin. Rich Sheffrin broke his elliptical machine. One of our buddies who reads and does everything while he's on the elliptical. So
I like to watch movies while I'm on the elliptical.
Yeah. Well, so tell us, this show, we talk about persuasion, and we say all the time, like, persuasion shows up everywhere, right? Yep. Like, once you know about it, you start to see it everywhere. So we're gonna go a little bit different. It's not necessarily how you would use this for yourself, but just more of an awareness of the kind of stuff that's out there that if you're not paying attention can literally take over your life and change the trajectory of your life. So we're just going to let you talk about kind of what you saw and the tactics that you saw used when it comes to kind of this indoctrination, brainwashing of youths in that religion of Islam, and how they took, a religion that is practiced peacefully by millions of people and turned it into this, weapon. So I'll let you take it from there.
Let me start off by just talking about weaponizing persuasion. When I first get out of the Army, so I'm gonna jump forward to go back a little bit. Mm-hmm. When I first got out, I opened a little insurance brokerage. That's what I did for the first couple of years after I got out. I'm in the film and media business now, but I opened my little insurance brokerage back then. And tell you what, finding leads or targeting leads, closing sales is not incredibly different than identifying high value targets, identifying the locations, the probable, the pattern of life for high value targets. The only real difference is if, when I'm writing a life insurance policy, nobody has to die right now.
Yeah.
So as far as chasing that down range, you see both sides of it, because you're conducting psychological warfare in a place where the entire society is basically an active maneuver of psychological warfare. So the way that they stay indoctrinated, there was a very controversial British general, maybe a dozen years ago. It's been since we got into the Middle East, but there was, and I'm sorry, his name fails me, but he said that the only way to solve the problem in the Middle East is that you have to kill everyone who can read or speak.
Wow.
And it's a horrifying statement, but his point was that he kind of compared the religion itself and the following of it to a virus that, if not wiped out entirely, and I don't entirely share his opinion. On a practical level, he's not technically wrong, but obviously that is not the solution that anybody is.
Right.
Yeah.
But what happens with it, much like the old Catholic deal, where it wasn't just that the peasants weren't allowed to read the Bible. It's that the Bible was written in Latin. The peasants didn't speak Latin. And it was a major blasphemy to transcribe the Bible into English. That was not acceptable. If you wanted to know the text, it had to be given to you through an appointed interpreter, through clergy. And the Quran is treated very much the same way in the Middle East. Most of the people do not read. What little education the majority of the local nationals have is essentially they've had the Quran read to them.
Yeah.
And one of the missions that we did in outside of Sanjare, there was the Pure Muhammad School, and I think it's been overrun and taken back now. But we ran it out, cleaned it out, and got all the entrenched Taliban out of it. And it's basically a mosque the size of a decent sized house here. We ran the Taliban out of it and brought in desks and pillows and books and made it into a school. And there was a controversy there because we had little boys and little girls going to the school. And that was one we would, I didn't actually march these patrols. I had a hand in getting the school set up, but then I had other stuff to do. But we would send some of our infantry guys down, and a team of 6 would go down and escort the kids from the village center to the school, and armed guard escort every morning, and then armed guard escort home every afternoon. And at some point, the village elders said that they weren't comfortable having the guns around the kids. We're like, I don't know if you've thought this through. And they made a big stink about it. And so we backed off, and that didn't go as well as it could have. But the greater point there is the reason those children were targets and the reason they needed an armed escort is because they were being offered an education. And it wasn't even us giving them the education. Like we built this facility, we supplied the facility, but the teachers in there were people from the community. They were village elders and local imam. They were being instructed by locals, by Muslims, and they were being instructed in the Islamic faith. And that's how they do theirs. Mm-hmm. So, it was one thing for them not to have anything. It would have been a very different thing to try and say, well, no, you need to have reading, writing, and arithmetics. I think they do need the reading, writing, and arithmetics, but they weren't primed for it. And that's part of that sort of kind of nefarious persuasion, where the ignorance of the persuadee is a major factor in maintaining your persuasive grasp on them. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you're familiar with any of the writings of John Kenneth Galbraith, the book Anatomy of Power. He talks of there are three ways to control someone, and he calls them the 3 C's. They are condign, condition, and compensatory. Condign after the adverb for condign punishment, a severe punishment. So that's your stick. Compensatory, obviously, do it and I'll pay you. So do it or I'll beat you, do it and I'll pay you. And then the third one, what he called condition, is a sort of almost, he even describes it poorly, because what he's trying to describe is this kind of ethereal cult of personality. There are just certain personality types that are charismatic and effective, and God forbid such a personality type wield also the condign power to punish and the compensatory power to reward. And that's what you see there. Sure. Even Christianity does that to a point, but we're not in a total theocracy here. So it's much less insidious, but the preacher is charismatic. The imam is charismatic. And then he has the promise of the reward of heaven and the threat of the punishment of hell. Mm-hmm. So without getting into a philosophical or theological debate on whether or not those exist, he has what, at the barest minimum, the people that follow him believe to be very, very real powers to grant reward and serve punishment.
That's an interesting thought, because it's not necessarily his punishment or his reward. He's just latching on to one that's dominant in the culture. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be directly from that person, right? It's in fact, it may be stronger if it's a bigger kind of, accepted out there force for most people. That's interesting. I've never really thought of, I guess that's the whole common enemy, common stuff, but I never thought of it quite the way you were talking about it there. So that's interesting.
You see the same thing happen with taboos. In the medieval ages, it was taboo to use the color blue for anything but painting the robes of the Virgin Mary. That particular shade of blue that's made with ground lapis lazuli stone, which is very expensive even today. That particular brand of blue, that royal blue, is it's very expensive. Literally more expensive than jet fuel. But the taboo said you don't paint not the Virgin Mary's robes with this color. And mm-hmm. go look through the museums, and you won't find it. And if you do find it, there's a controversy story around it. Even in the 70s and 80s, with men wearing earrings, it was taboo because it appeared to be homosexual. So if somebody wore earrings that were, they're involved in punk rock, they're involved in heavy metal, hair music, and they've got an earring in, they're being subversive. They're being intentionally provocative and fighting against a taboo. So yeah, even something as simple as a taboo can be not quite as gripping maybe as the more broader you're going to hell forever threat, but it works in very much mechanically the same way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what else did you go ahead, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was going to say, so what's the next step is, I guess in indoctrination, obviously Sean and I talk a lot about in persuasion, whether it's copywriting, whether it's, you're writing sales copy or presenting, but you're kind of fighting a common enemy, whether the enemy is, in their case, capitalist pigs or whatever, or, you're fighting against big pharma, or you're fighting against big government, or you're fighting against, you name it, the healthcare industry or fitness or whatever, there's always a common enemy out there. And we know in persuasion that, you've got to kind of incite that battle or that fight and say, it's kind of like your problems aren't the result of your bad decisions. It's really about these people or this group out here. Is that a big part of what you saw with the indoctrination of young people at an early stage? Is that it's all about not their fault,
we're the white devil or the the Western devil.
Right.
I mean, complete with the horns and the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even take that back to Nietzsche's wolf and sheep philosophy, or eagle and sheep philosophy, where he explained that there are, he would use master and slave language or eagle and sheep or lamb and wolf language, but he would describe there is an entity that is strong and virtuous, productive, wealthy, has a virtue. And then there's a victim class. There's the poor, there's whoever the victim class is. And the morality of that poor victim class is the mirror of whatever the morality of the other group is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a group that is successful and they value things like hard work, individuality, punctuality, then you will say that those things are evil and that doing the opposite of those things is good. That's some old school Nietzsche. And where we see that really manifest itself in the cults and in places like the Middle East is the idea that when you look at America, just the excess. I mean, hell, I've got 7 monitors on this desk. Now, I run a production studio.
Sure.
These 7 monitors, at any given time, I might have Premiere Pro and After Effects and Audition all open at the same time. And then I'm going through stock footage on this other monitor. I use the crap out of all these monitors. Right. But to just look at it, it looks excessive. It looks very excessive.
Sure.
And, we're talking about people who defecate in their own streets. Like I worked on a Cash for Work program where we took an armored bulldozer down to the local village and we passed out rakes and shovels and paid them cash money to shovel their own trash out of the street into the bulldozer. And then we took it, out into the desert and buried it in the sand somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And all the while you're doing that, you've got kids running up to you trying to snatch a pen out of your sleeve. Y'all were in a little earlier than I was, I think. Did y'all have the BDUs or the ACUs?
BDUs.
Okay, see, I was in the last basic training unit to be issued BDUs. So we got 2 sets of BDUs and 2 sets of ACUs. And then all our other gear was still BDU, and then we had to get it all replaced.
Right.
But the ACUs had these three little sleeves or these 3 little pockets on the sleeves for a pen.
Mm-hmm.
So like I always had a blue ballpoint, a black ballpoint, and a Sharpie in my sleeve. Well, while I was downrange, there would always be a kid come up and try to steal one of my pens. They're constantly trying to steal my pens, or my watch.
Yeah.
Right. I had one guy walk up to me. I'm standing there just, in observation. This guy walks up and he starts talking and he starts tapping his finger on the sight on my weapon, on my ACOG. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And, his hands were filthy and now there's greasy fingerprints all over my ACOG. Like, yeah, you're not up to anything at all, are you? But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, so what is it about that, them wanting to take the pens? Is that were they trying to get at you? Or were they just thinking that whatever you had was theirs, should be theirs? What was the psychology, do you think, behind that? Or was it just like a trinket?
I hate to say it. This is going to sound cruel and dismissive, but it really is the case that everybody under the age of 10 is a professional pickpocket. And they really are. Because they know that every now and then they'll go to pick a pocket. If you're talking about an American soldier, they might go to pick a pocket and walk away with a candy bar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that encouraged by,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely encouraged by the adults.
So as long as they're, again, going back to that, it's not your fault, that we talk about, or when you're, persuading someone that, or this is okay, as long as you're doing it against, the enemy or the people or whoever you're trying to fight against, whatever that cause.
Well, and it's not even to say it's not your fault is not sufficient.
Right.
I don't want to get too deep into politics because that's my show.
Right. Yeah.
Which
we're persuasion. So we delve into a little bit,
but it's not enough. Like I was saying with the wolf and sheep mentality, it's not enough that it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It has to absolutely be affirmatively someone else's fault.
Sure.
Right. Your situation is not just outside of your control, but it is a situation that has been pressed down upon you by an enemy. And more importantly, we can point at that enemy. That's him. It's that guy.
Is isolation a big component? I know in a lot of cults, and part of the persuasion happens when you are isolating the person from, people that they know, whether it be family members, friends that they've grown up with. That's an important part of that process. Is does that happen at an early age where they try to?
It doesn't quite happen. What you're talking about, where someone's being indoctrinated into a cult, you're not talking about somebody who's growing up in the midst of it. You're talking about someone who has lived a life and
outside.
They have at least some measure of education. Even if you're talking about somebody that's being grabbed up by a cult when they're 9, 10, 11 years old, they've had some exposure to a moral set, a value set. It may have been religious, it may have been secular, but the important factor is that it is external to the cult already. So basically, when you bring them in, it's kind of like you have to quarantine their ideas so that you're achieving two things there. You're preventing the ideas that they have from having an opportunity to challenge the ideas of the cult outside of quarantine, because those ideas are from the outside. That's a disease that can spread within your isolated population.
Sure.
The word paradise, you talk about the Garden of Eden. The word paradise literally means a garden encircled by a wall. A para, around, dice, circle.
Yeah.
And so when you're bringing somebody into a cult, you have to start by getting rid of what they already grew up with. When you're talking about something like Islam in the Middle East, the children are raised in it. So from the very time they're born, they're, when they're infants before they can crawl, they're being set down in a corner while all the adults and even the young children are getting down on their knees and doing the bow and praying 5 times a day. So they're already being indoctrinated with the physicality of it, with the locomotion of it before they even begin to speak. And once they begin to speak, every conversation they have is either about what are the chores to be done or what does the prophet want.
Yeah. So instead of being isolated, what they're really trying to do is because it's they grow up in this. What they're really trying to do is keep isolate their whole culture from Western culture, or keep it out of their keep it away from them, and try to keep the exposure to a minimum, because they don't want
the longer you can keep them from being exposed to ideas that can challenge them, the more deeply the ideas which you don't want challenged can be rooted.
Sure.
And the longer you're in I'm going to say indoctrinated. There was another word I meant to use, but the longer you've been indoctrinated with that given idea, the less effectively an external concept can challenge that faith. The older a person gets, the less likely they are to change their mind about any given topic.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I read years ago, I was reading about, and this is you were talking about communism, but you could relate the two in a lot of ways. But I remember reading that, communist Russia, or the USSR back in the day, one of the things that was a starting of their demise was, I think the 1980 Olympics that we had in Los Angeles, or when they came over here, and they had been exposed to the fact, they're being taught of how bad and how despicable the capitalism is. They come over here to the Olympics and they look around and they see, prosperity, and they see luxury, and they see all, everywhere they look they see the outworkings of capitalism, and they go back home, and really everything that they had been taught, or everything that they had been, I guess, brainwashed to a certain degree about capitalism and about the Western culture, was completely different than what they were exposed to. And they decided that everything that they had ever been taught was a complete lie.
Well, what was funny about that is, obviously all of Russia didn't come to those Olympics, right? Yeah. It is really just a handful of people compared against the population. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's a hilarious story, because the people that came over for the Olympics did, and then they went back and were telling people, telling their comrades back home, Привет, Tovich, USA, right? And people are just like, I don't believe you. No, we know what we believe. We believe this. And then all of a sudden they started getting bootleg copies of the television show Dallas.
Yeah.
And so now they're seeing images and hearing stories from their television that are basically adding evidence to the claims that are being made by these nut jobs that went over to America and came back not horrified. And so, in a lot of ways, the Olympics and Dallas ended the Soviet Union.
You watch a few episodes of J.R. Ewing, man, you're like, whoa, what's going on?
I know a lot. Stories like that is one of the things that led me toward doing media stuff to begin with. I started my YouTube channel 6 years ago, and I honestly, when I started the channel, I was just screwing around with some buddies. I didn't expect to take it anywhere in particular. I've got a White House press pass now.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So let's, I got one question though so as a, Army intelligence, clandestine operations, like, I know you probably can't say everything or even a lot of stuff, but like, what was just kind of the goal of your unit? Like, how were you trying to offset what was going on?
It is a sticky question.
Yeah,
there is a lot I have to be careful about. A lot that I did was classified because of capabilities and to protect techniques and sources. Mm-hmm. But my primary mission was to identify command level operators and remove them from the battlefield. And a lot of them,
translation.
A lot of them we brought in and got to interrogate and then sent to a prison.
Sure.
Some. Actually, it's funny. I was there right after the very first iPad hit the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Literally, it came out, I think, 4 months before we deployed. And one of my privates said, "Hey, Sergeant, can I take off early so I can go get in line for the iPad release?" And I said, okay, you're a smart kid, Private, because we're about to spend 16 hours on an airplane, and that's a TV.
Yeah.
So here's a wad of money. Bring me one too. Well, and the funny bit, I had no idea. I mean, I kind of understood what an iPad wanted to be at that point, but I still had a flip phone back. Most of us still had a flip phone when the iPad came out. Even an iPhone was still kind of a luxury item, more of a luxury item than anything. And he brought me my iPad, and I started playing around with it and started figuring stuff out, what I could do with it. All of a sudden, I'm downrange with this thing. Nobody's ever seen one before, right? This is a new toy in the desert. And I've got satellite maps, and I could draw little circles and arrows on them.
Yeah.
Right. I'm playing with all kind of stuff. And then, do y'all remember the old school original voice recorder app where it was meant to look like an old school radio dial, and it had the little needle that went up as you spoke?
Yep.
It also had a little red light on it too, right? Again, these people had never seen one. Sure. I would take prisoners in to interrogate them, and I'd bring out the iPad and I would set it on the table, right? And I had a spare charging cable that I just ripped one end off of and stripped it back, and I would tie the two bare wires around his fingers, and I would open up the voice recorder app with the little needle, and I'd tell him this is a lie detector test. If that little needle goes into the red, then I know.
Wow.
I didn't know what it was, so might feel a little guilty lying to the enemy, but we found a lot of bad guys by telling that little Porky Pie.
Wow. So I want to move on to kind of what you're up to now. Obviously, there's no way that your background doesn't, move into what you're doing now. So I'm curious, what are you up to now, and how are you using and studying persuasion and all this stuff in your current role? Because I know you got a couple podcasts and studio. And
I do. So, you get out of the Army and you've got that GI Bill to play with. Mm-hmm. And I went back to school, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm medically retired. So I'm the kind of retired, if it was just me and the wife, we could go live on the beach in Mexico and just be retired.
Yeah.
But we've got 4 kids, and they want to eat every damn day.
Kids, I tell you.
4 of them. So I had to do something. But I went to get a degree in philosophy because I thought it sounded like fun. I'm military resume. I could basically go wherever I want to go. And while I was at Clayton State over in Clayton County, Georgia, studying philosophy, there was a film competition. This company called Campus Movie Fest shows up on the campus once a year, and they say, "Hey, it's free to enter. There's prizes. We're giving away TVs and drones and restaurant gift cards and all that kind of stuff. And it's free to enter. They give you a camera, a laptop, and a microphone, and they tell you you've got 7 days to make a 5-minute short film, and then we're having a film festival, and we'll see who wins." That's
cool.
Okay, I'll try. So I jumped in. With a team. They already had a writer. They already had a director. I jumped in as a technical guy and I ran the camera. And so I didn't write it. I didn't direct it. I pointed the camera at these people, and then I took it back and edited it on the Adobe software that was on the little laptop they provided us. And we won, and I won Best Editor. And the film was horrible. It's the first film I ever made. It's called Bad Joke, and that's exactly what it is. And I'm almost ashamed to have been involved in it. But I won Best Editor in that competition, and said, okay. I went to the registrar's office that afternoon, and I said, "Hey, going into the next semester, I want to switch my major to I want to take a double major in film and philosophy.
Yeah.
Oh, did we just lose him?
We lost Jonathan for a little bit, but it's still recording, so we're good.
Okay, cool. So doing that, when that happened, I still had my insurance company, but I was having so much fun, and I just went ahead and shut down my insurance business. I went about 2 years there as a full-time student, and then one day I went and printed out some business cards to say East Atlanta Video on them. All the while I was already doing the Brushfire Mind, which is the YouTube channel where we do political analysis. But then I printed out some business cards that said East Atlanta Video on them, and I started showing up to Chamber of Commerce leads meetings, which I've been dealing with those guys anyway. So most of them were already my customers from the insurance world. Maybe not half the businesses around here, but a lot of the small businesses around here, I did their building insurance, their car insurance, their health insurance, their life, everything. And so, basically I walked into a room full of customers from a completely unrelated business and said, "Hey, I make movies now. Do you want commercials?" And I did enough business that first week to justify okay, this is a business. This is what we're doing now.
I mean, I think that's a great lesson too. Like, so both your little lie detector story there, and then also, that where you just print up some business cards. I mean, obviously you're in school for it and you're taking some classes and stuff, but I think one of the most persuasive things in life is just confidence to just it reminds me of like Beverly Hills Cop, right? When you just go in real super confident and it seems to work out. I mean, that's what seems to be super persuasive, is just the confidence.
And people like to talk to people that like to talk.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful tools that I used when I was selling, I had a contract with this one company called Encompass, and they had a special car insurance policy that was targeted at wealthy clients.
Mm-hmm.
And their dirty little secret was that their policy was actually cheaper than policies that weren't targeted at very wealthy clients, because their high credit score wealthy clients had such a low rate of accidents that it didn't cost them as much to maintain that client pool. So they could keep a smaller client pool. But anyway, one of the main features of their policy, they had two major features of the policy. If you owned a vehicle that was 5 years or newer and you totaled it, they would just replace it with the current model year equivalent, which is insane. You won't find that anywhere. It's insane. Right. And then their other little trick, and this is the one that I sold the policy on all the time, was if you locked your keys in the car, they would send a locksmith for no additional charge. It was just thrown in there. So at any of these little mixers, leads groups, chamber of commerce types things, whenever I got the chance to, I would tell people a story. I keep a spare key to my pickup truck in my wall. I've been driving the same truck for 20 years, and I've never locked my keys in that truck. And it's because I have a magic talisman. And it's pure witchcraft. It's a little magic amulet that I keep, and I never leave the house without it. And I pull up my wallet and I pull out the key and show it's a spare key.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. And the key won't start the truck because it's just a cut copy. It doesn't have the computer chip, but I never lock my keys in my truck. And here's what happened. Every single time without fail, every time I told that story, somebody in the crowd would say, "Man, I locked my keys in the car at the airport the other day," or somebody.
Yeah.
If I'm telling that story to more than 5 people, somebody had a story about how they locked their keys in their car the other day, and it was the most inconvenient thing, or it was the worst thing that ever happened to it. It was a nightmare. It was da 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 da. And then, I've got this insurance policy with this company called Encompass, and they'll send a locksmith over to you free. Not once did I open with that story and not sell at least one car insurance policy. Not once. Because people like to talk to people who like to talk. If you tell stories, if you walk into a room with a hostile sitting on the other side of the table, and you walk into the room and you flop yourself heavy down in the chair with like a coffee cup. Oh, man. Look, my sergeant, I mean, he's a ball buster. He's on me. It's so frustrating. Okay, so he wants me to figure out. I mean, you know how that is, right? He's just always on me. Oh yeah, brother, I have Khalifi. He told me that, and now he's telling me a story, and he's telling me a story that includes places, and it includes names, and it includes times, and it includes descriptions, and it includes movement patterns. And now all of a sudden, I've got a POL, a pattern of life, and I know. I mean, I've had those conversations where I could cut a bad guy loose. I could just say, you know what? I think you're good, and just cut him loose because I know I can follow him now, because I know where he's going now. And even if he loses me on the street, I know where he's going to end up. And more importantly, I know who he's going to end up with. That was one of the best ways I ever found to climb the chain. And the same thing works in sales. And that's that kind of friendliness is very dangerous because it can be legitimately sincere, right? That kind of friendliness really can just be somebody who is personable and interesting and friendly and just wants to have a friendly conversation, or it may not be.
Yeah. And if they're good at it, you can't tell the difference.
Correct.
Reminds me of Columbo, the old Columbo detective.
I was at the polls as an observer last Friday. And I was there as a Republican observer, and there was a Democrat observer representative from the Carter Center there, and he walked up and just started chit-chatting with me. And I was happy to chit-chat with him, and then he started asking questions, and I'm listening to these questions, and honestly, I was not the person in that particular situation. I did not have the information that this guy wanted.
Yeah.
But he was slick. I mean,
yeah.
he got a couple of questions out before I was like, yeah, I see what you're doing there, brother. Like, hey, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. You want one? No, I don't smoke. Yeah, I know.
Well, man, Jonathan, I know you were in and out there a little bit with your video feed there, but you got any last questions? We're about an hour, so probably
it's a pity. I just told the best story you would ever heard, Jonathan.
I know, right? It's the best one.
I gotta go back and listen.
You have to listen to
what's great about this platform, the StreamYard. Even if I disappear, the show goes on. So
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So any last questions from you, Jonathan? Then we'll let Chris kind of talk about.
No, it's been interesting. I loved hearing your stories. Lowry, or you go by Lowry, right? Did I get that right?
Lowry's good. Lowry's good.
Yeah. Cool.
So that was interesting. It's real fascinating. I could, that's a topic that we could probably dig a little further, but we don't. Obviously, we're running short on time. But how can for our listeners, you do a lot of video stuff. What's
I do.
What's the name of your company? Because you probably mentioned it, and I've flashed out there for like 3 times.
I have a YouTube channel called The Brushfire Mind, where we do political analysis.
Okay.
My official training measure from the military is intelligence analytics. I was a crypto analyst, so I have a very you can get what is happening from the pundits, but my background is in doing the tactical analysis to understand what the game theory is around how various activities within political news affect how world events are likely to play out in the future. Predictive analysis.
Okay. Well, you've been having a heyday lately, huh?
Oh yeah. Yours is not a political show. Obviously, I have a position,
Yes.
and I was one of the few that was actually on board with the Donald when he first came down the elevator or the escalator. And it wasn't about Donald Trump in particular. It was, he said a few very specific things that I recognized early on, and I was able to say, okay, this guy has read The Art of War, And
yes.
that's why his book is entitled The Art of the Deal. And these I can see these very specific maneuvers that he's taken up front.
Mm-hmm.
And I can compare those to my understanding of the activities of a battlefield. I was live. You can actually go back and find the video from right after he came down the escalator where it was what was it called? I think the video was entitled "The Art of Amorphous Warfare," and I described how and why Donald Trump was going to win the 2016 election. And I mean, I surprised myself with it. Was a lot of it was wild guesses based on kind of most extreme case resolutions of the expected scenarios, and it was just like dominoes. But we do a live show every Monday through Friday at 07:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I pop up randomly here and there. I dropped 2 videos this morning from the MAGA rally in downtown Atlanta yesterday. They're just 2 little short. One's a guy dressed like Uncle Sam on the sidewalk, and the other one's a couple of, I don't want to say homeless guys playing the crap out of some saxophones. And I'm gonna be back down there tomorrow to get some more footage because there's a whole bevy of celebrities supposed to be down there tomorrow.
Yeah, your state's gonna have a lot of money pouring into it over this next month. It's crazy.
Yes, very much so. And then on my commercial side, I have East Atlanta Video. We do event videos. We do commercials, weddings, funerals, speakers, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sean and I, we talk, we delve into some politics occasionally on our show just because of, we talked about, Trump's Win Bigly book. Cause that's, if you read that, that's probably one of the top books on persuasion that anyone could read. And, we've mentioned that a number of times. I think we actually predicted he would win by a landslide. He still may. I'm still holding on to that prediction. So we'll see.
This morning, so every Friday morning, we do the Firearms Friday, where we talk about a recent case of a lawfully armed citizen defending themselves with their firearm from a legitimate attacker. And usually the way that goes is it's a short segment, and then we just kind of talk about whatever's going on. So, of course, this morning we talked a bit about the Giuliani press conference from yesterday, because yesterday morning I was kind of cross with Giuliani and I forget her name.
Sidney something.
Sidney Powell.
Yes, Sidney Powell. Yesterday I was saying on the show, guys, I love the release the Kraken rhetoric. I'm a huge Greek mythology buff. I mean, philosophy of religion was a full 2 semesters for me. I'm with you there. But if you keep saying I've got the evidence and you don't show it to me, you sound like Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
You sound like you're saying Russia, Russia, Russia.
Right.
You got to put up or shut up.
You got to deliver. Yeah, you got to deliver the goods.
Yeah, and then like 2 or 3 hours after I was off the air with that, I'm driving to Atlanta, and here's the press conference, and I'm listening to it like, oh, okay, okay,
there's the goods.
We're doing this.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting I mean, regardless of what happens, just the whole theater of this has been an amazing thing to kind of just watch and see how both sides handle it and all this stuff. So there's a lot of lessons I think we'll pull out after the fact as well. Go back and look and see what happened. But it's been I mean, just this whole year from a persuasion standpoint, whether you're talking political or, well, it's pretty much all been political. It feels like, but what the 2 sides and all the different, arguments, it's just been amazing to kind of to watch over this year. It's been a crazy year.
Well, and you guys do persuasion stuff. Let me ask you about there's 2 films. One is called Branded and They Live.
Okay.
You're almost certainly familiar with They Live, at least from meme culture. Just you see the you see the memes where the people have the weird musculoskeletal exposed underskin, and it says "obey," stuff like that. That's from the film They Live. You take
I remember that. That's old school.
Yeah. And that's all about embedded propaganda and that kind of crazy stuff. The film Branded is worth watching when you're talking about the persuasion stuff. At the beginning of the film, the marketeer that is the main character tells the story of the vodka campaign. Back in the 70s, there was this vodka campaign. What happened is Smirnoff hired a marketer to market Smirnoff, and he did his market analysis, and he said, the problem is not your product. The problem is not your brand. The problem is the vodka brand. It's not that people don't want to drink Smirnoff. It's that people don't want to drink vodka. So we have to rebrand your industry, not your product. And they ran an ad campaign where they told people, if you drink vodka at lunch, the boss can't smell it on your breath when you come back.
Yep,
that's right.
And all of a sudden, vodka sales exploded. Everybody's vodka sales exploded, and Smirnoff benefited from the industry benefiting rather than from rebranding itself, because people were having a cocktail with, everybody was having a cocktail with lunch.
Yep.
The old ad said, it'll leave you breathless.
Yes, that's the one. So the marketer tells that story at the beginning, and he's telling that story to a board that represents big fast food.
Yeah.
All the fast food companies have come together to rebrand fast food. And like, this isn't even what the movie's about. This is the first 10 minutes of the movie before it gets into his guru journey. That's terrifying. He loses his soul and has to recover it, because at the beginning, when he's hired by fast food, he decides to run a marketing campaign that they do one of those extreme makeover shows where they have several unattractive, overweight women that compete for a chance at a super makeover. And then on purpose, this girl that's supposed to have liposuction and plastic surgery and cosmetic makeover and all this stuff, her surgery is a catastrophic failure, and she remains fat, but now she's even uglier because she's scarred up. Wow. And the following ad campaign is the rest of the world starts eating fast food in solidarity for this victim. Wow. And that's what starts the hero on his journey. Yeah. That's his fall from grace, and like, oh, okay, I got to go find me some Jesus.
Wow.
That's the film you can check out when you're talking about persuasion stuff. It's a weird flick. It's bizarre, but it's very, very heavy on the persuasion.
Well, from a film standpoint, that's a great hook, though, right? I mean,
I
mean, you're in at that point. Like, you're watching the rest of this.
Oh yeah, that's like the beginning of Robert A. Heinlein's Friday. I stepped off the space elevator. I turned around, and as the door closed behind him, I killed him. Like, why? Who are you? What the hell is a space elevator?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. And that's one of the principles we talk about. Like, you got to start in the middle of the action so that people kind of a little bit disoriented, but drawn in at the same time. And it's just really powerful. So
the action in writing is get in late and out early.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lowry, it's been fun. Thank you for coming on and joining us. It's been a pleasure. And
fantastic.
We'll be getting this out first of the week, the audio version. Of course, we're live now, but we'll send you over the link. And listen, hope you have a great weekend. Best of luck in your business. And again, thanks for the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, gentlemen. Y'all have a great evening.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we could go for days on that, especially if we get political. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so enjoyed it. Missed out quite a bit because I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, the internet got really spotty there. But anyway, thanks for everyone that tunes in. Thanks for listening. Hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll post this link here in a few days. Sean, any closing comments?
No, it's probably your internet's probably some part of some conspiracy, I'm sure. So
probably so.
5G or something.
Either ISIS or maybe it's those liberals. I don't know. All right. Well, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms. You can even check us out over at our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/persuasion by the pint. Sean, it's been fun. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
All right.